Back in the 2013 offseason, when Sam Hinkie was hired as the new GM for the Philadelphia 76ers, he started what was known as the process, which was basically a rebuild and a tank for the team. One of Hinkie's first moves as a GM was back in the 2013 draft when he traded his star in Jrue Holiday for Nerlens Noel and a first-round pick. Noel was projected to be the number 1 pick in the draft, but ended up falling to number 6 due to an ACL injury he suffered in college. Noel had a great year in college where he averaged 10.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, and almost 4.5 blocks per game. Trading away Jrue Holiday took away some of the veteran leadership on the 76ers team that needed that very much. The 76ers ended up having one of their worst seasons in their franchise's history, with a record of only 19 wins and 63 losses. This was due to the lack of veterans that were on the team, with most of the players on the team only being in their first, second, or third year in the 2013-14 season. When it came time for the 2014 NBA draft, the Philadelphia 76ers were very active. After having less than 20 losses in the 2013-14 season, the 76ers ended up with 2 lottery picks. The 76ers took Joel Embiid with the 3rd pick and Elfrid Payton with the 10th pick, who they later traded. Embiid looked to be the future of the Sixers franchise at the center position, but ended up sitting out his first 2 years in the league due to injuries. While Joel Embiid was out for his first 2 seasons in the league, the Sixers continued to tank as part of the process, with a worse record in the 2014-15 season than they did in the year before. After the 2014-15 season, the Sixers ended up with the 3rd pick in the draft once again. The first 2 picks in the draft before the Sixers chose were by the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Lakers, who took Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, who both ended up being All-Stars. The Sixers ended up taking Jahlil Okafor with the 3rd pick, and ended up passing on 2 future All-Stars in Kristaps Porzingis and Devin Booker. Since the 76ers were only looking for their team's future, it was interesting to see that they picked another big man in back-to-back drafts. In Okafor's 1 year at Duke, he averaged over 17 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1.5 blocks per game. Okafor showed the Sixers that he can be a dominant threat in the paint, being able to score consistently and also get offensive rebounds to get second-chance points, as well as a great defender. With Embiid hurt and not playing, Okafor got a lot of starts where he averaged over 17.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks per game. Okafor showed that he could be the franchise's center for many years to come, until February when he suffered a knee injury that kept him out the rest of the season and affected the rest of his career. In the 2015-16 season, the Sixers had yet another horrible year where they had a record of 10-72 and were 28th in the league in attendance at their home games. After a horrible start to the 76ers season, they hired a new GM, and Sam Hinkie later stepped down from his position with the 76ers. When it came time for the 76ers to choose their pick in the 2016 draft, they had the number 1 pick in a draft that contained a lot of talent, including players like Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, and Jaylen Brown. This was the first draft since the 2012 draft without Sam Hinkie as the 76ers GM, where they chose Ben Simmons with the number 1 overall pick in a very talented draft. While Embiid came back for the 2016-17 season, Simmons missed his whole rookie year due to a foot injury. The new GM for the Philadelphia 76ers in Bryan Colangelo was left with the 76ers team that has been tanking and was part of the process when Sam Hinkie was the GM. With a new GM, the 76ers improved their record from 10 wins in the previous season to a record of 28-54 in the next season, which still left them with the 2nd worst record in the Eastern Conference. After finishing 14th in the Eastern Conference, the Philadelphia 76ers ended up with the number 1 overall pick yet again, where they chose Markelle Fultz from Washington. This was another year with a very talented draft with players like Lonzo Ball, Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo, Donovan Mitchell, and Kyle Kuzma. In Fultz's rookie year, he was only limited to 18 minutes per game in 14 games due to injuries. It seems like there was a trend where a lot of the Sixers players ended up getting hurt in their rookie season when they were drafted. After missing a lot of games due to injuries, Jahlil Okafor, the former third overall pick for the 76ers a couple years back, was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. After many consecutive seasons of bad records for the 76ers, people started to question if the process was really working. All the players part of the process that were high draft picks were getting injured and were not playing a lot of minutes. Even when Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons was playing, it seemed like the 76ers still didn't have a great record and weren't going anywhere. After Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid were both back for the 2017-18 season healthy, the 76ers finished with a record of 52-30, which was third in the Eastern Conference. With Joel Embiid back for a mostly healthy season in the 2017-18 season, he was named an All-Star where he averaged about 23 points per game, 11 rebounds, over 3 assists, and almost 2 blocks per game. With Ben Simmons back after missing his first season entirely due to a foot injury, he played 81 out of 82 games where he averaged about 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists per game, with also over 1.5 steals per game. As a 6'10" point guard, Ben Simmons has shown how great he can be in the paint, being able to score, but not so much from three-point range or mid-range, but he can also dish out assists and grab rebounds every night. When it came time for the 76ers to play their first playoff game in over 5 years, they were able to get past the first round in 5 games against the Heat, but later got eliminated in the second round in 5 games to the Boston Celtics. It started to seem that the 76ers just needed more experience with their young core and a good front office to support them. The 2018 draft was another year with a lot of talented players, including players like DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, Marvin Bagley, Jaren Jackson Jr., Trae Young, Michael Porter Jr., and Shai Alexander, and many others. The 76ers had a couple first-round picks in the 10th pick in Mikal Bridges, who they later traded, and Landry Shamet with the 26th pick in the draft. In September of 2018, Elton Brand was named the new GM of the Philadelphia 76ers. It did not take him too long to make a big trade, where in November of 2018, the Sixers traded Jared Bayless, Robert Covington, and Dario Saric, along with a second-round pick in the 2022 draft for Jimmy Butler and Justin Patton. Butler seemed like the missing piece and some veteran leadership that the 76ers needed to lead them to a playoff run. In the 2018-19 season, the 76ers finished third in the NBA Eastern Conference with a record of 51-31, similar to what they had in the year before. Jimmy Butler was a good add to play alongside Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, hitting a few game winners to give the 76ers a few extra wins during the season, along with his excellent play in other games. Not only did Elton Brand trade for Jimmy Butler, he also traded for Tobias Harris from the Los Angeles Clippers in a trade where they traded Wilson Chandler, Mike Muscala, Landry Shamet, a 2020 first-round pick, a 2021 first-round pick, and a second-round pick in the 2021 draft, and another second for Tobias Harris, Boban Marjanovic, and Mike Scott, and a few picks. Just one day after the 76ers traded for Tobias Harris, they traded away Markelle Fultz to the Orlando Magic just one season after they drafted him number 1 overall in the 2017-18 draft. In the first round of the 2018-19 playoffs, the 76ers went up against the 6th-seed Nets, who had D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie. They ended up losing Game 1 to the Nets, but ended up winning the next 4 games to win the series in 5 games. In the second round, the 76ers went on to face a Toronto Raptors team with Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, and Kawhi Leonard. The Raptors did end up winning the NBA Finals that year, while the 76ers were forced to play 7 games in that series, where they lost on Kawhi Leonard's memorable shot. In the 2019 draft, they didn't have many great picks, only had one late first-rounder and a few early second-rounders, which they all later traded, in Ty Jerome, Carson Edwards, Bruno Fernando, and Admiral Schofield. After the draft, they did end up trading Carson Edwards and Ty Jerome for Matisse Thybulle. Coming into the 2019-2020 season, the 76ers had a lot of big contracts, and Tobias Harris, who was on a 4-year $100 million plus deal, along with a 4-year $100 plus deal, and Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Al Horford. The 76ers did end up doing a sign-and trade where they signed Jimmy Butler as a free agent, and as part of a 4-team trade, traded Jimmy Butler to the Miami Heat, where they got back Josh Richardson, who was the main player. When Elton Brand took over as the 76ers GM, he did make a lot of trades compared to when Sam Hinkie was the GM, and was just trying to get a lot of young players and wait years for them to develop into a great team. The 76ers did have a lot of young talent in players like Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, and Jahlil Okafor, but they were always injured. That seems like part of the process of why it went wrong, because it seemed like every year when the Sixers had a top 5 pick, every player they drafted ended up missing their whole rookie season or had injuries that they had to deal with throughout their career that caused them to not play a lot. Finally, when the 76ers had their 2 main players in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid healthy, they were on all-star level, but it seemed like the whole 76ers team did not have very good chemistry. It seems like even the fan base wasn't a fan of how the coaching staff and front office was doing and how the players were executing. The 76ers finished the 2019-20 season 6th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 43-30. In the bubble in Orlando, Florida, the 76ers played the 3-seed Celtics in the first round, where they got swept. This shows a lot because the 76ers had one of the best home records in the league during the regular season before the pandemic started, and it showed when they were in a neutral base arena against a very good team in the Celtics. After getting eliminated in the first round, the 76ers seemed kind of stuck with 4 players with over $100 million contracts in 4 years, so they did fire Brett Brown as their head coach and are seeking to find a new head coach for next season. To recap, the process started back when Sam Hinkie was hired as the Sixers GM in 2013. Since then, 2 other GMs have been hired to take over the team that he has given them. This team had a lot of young pieces in Markelle Fultz, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Jahlil Okafor. Joel Embiid has been known for saying trust the process in the past few years, but it hasn't shown in the way they've been playing in the playoffs, their team chemistry, and how they've been playing in the regular season. It seems that the Sixers are kind of stuck right now with their 4 big player contracts in Tobias Harris, Al Horford, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid, who all have 4-year deals worth over $100 million. It would be hard to deal a player in a trade in one of those 4 players, so it seems like the only logical things they can do is to make a move in the front office and fire their coach like they already did with Brett Brown. It seems like one thing that doesn't work out a lot with the 76ers is their team chemistry. They did just fire their head coach to try and get a better coach that can deal with the team better, but it seems like that the fan base isn't very happy with the team and that the team isn't happy with itself either. It does have a lot of great talent in players like Tobias Harris, Simmons, and Embiid, but the one thing that they can fix to make their team better is team chemistry. It doesn't seem like talent is an issue. It seems that chemistry is the one important thing that they can fix and that they can work on in the offseason, maybe having more Zoom meetings or things that will just make their chemistry better so it can show on the court. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to know right away when these kind of videos are posted. It is greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time.